Good afternoon, everybody. I'm just releasing a minor rant video here. It's not going to be up to my usual caliber. Not going to be complaining, yelling, screaming at manufacturers, nothing like that. Uh, this is just kind of a personal observation uh, of mine. This is involving 3D printing. As you can see here, I've got a Orca slicer open, and kind of some background on this. Every manufacturer, well, not every, a lot of them out there, have their own version of the Orca slicer software that slices files so you can send them to your 3D printer. And they're all almost all based off the actual Orca Slicer open source software that I have open here, which is phenomenal. It's arguably one of the best slicers out there, period. And I've tried Cura, Simplify 3D, uh, Bamboo Labs. I've tried a few, quite a few different ones over the years. I've been 3D printing now for almost 15 years, and Orca Slicer is the best for me. Other people, if you're new to 3D printing, you're going to use probably what that company has. Such, for example, there's Flash. Forge has their own. Elegoo has their own. Anycubic has their own. I do have the Elegoo and Anycubic open as well. I'm going to show you something on them real quick. But this is kind of my complaint right there in a nutshell. Manufacturers release their own slicers based on the same open source slicer that's already out there rather than releasing a plugin that expands that software to support theirs, which is kind of the purpose of Orca Slicer's plugin system, to allow you to be able to write plugins for it to expand its abilities without having to fork Orca Slicer. Now, if there's things that need to be done for these manufacturers to add plugins that do what they want, then by all means, reach out to the Orca Slicer developer team, to the community. Work on getting something like that done in order to support what needs to be done. Um, I say that because why keep reinventing the wheel? The Orca Slicer software goes through updates all the time. It's very actively developed. Um, they fix bugs all the time. They add new features, enhancements, and all that. Um, they know what they're doing. The community knows what they're doing. That's why I love it. And when a manufacturer such as Anycubic, Elegoo, FlashForge release their own and do all these wild customizations to make it great for their printers, they then have changed so much that when it comes to certain fixes released by Orca Slicer, they end up 6 months behind on fixes because they have to do a lot of work to incorporate the original software's fixes into theirs, which means their software is very inferior within 1 or 2 months of releasing it. And a lot of times they'll release an update to theirs that within a week becomes inferior because there's already been some major releases done to Orga Slicer. It's very quick in development for software, which is why I love Orca Slicer and all the community involvement in it. And I'd like to see that from the manufacturers. Yes, I know they go closed source with their firmware most of the time. I don't like that, but if they get behind the slicer software, I can accept it easier. I'm very pro open source community, even though yes, I do closed source development. That's my job. That's what I do. I understand it, but at the same time, they're taking something open source, making it closed source, and then forcing their users to use that to get the actual experience needed for their printer. So, for example, I can tell you right now, like with FlashForge, if you use a regular Orca slicer, the only thing you're going to get on the device tab is the camera. That's it. That's the only thing you're going to see is the camera view. You're not going to see anything else. Whereas, for example, on Anycubic Next Slicer, which I've got here, you're going to see their Workbench tab has all kinds of information, which is awesome. That's what I like to see from the different printer manufacturers, full support of their printer. However, I have to install their software to get this, or I have to install custom firmware on the printer, void the warranty, risk damage to the printer or damage to the chipset if there's an issue with that open source firmware that is not made by them, just to get this view. And it should not be that way. They should be able to work with Orca Slicer uh, and develop their own plugin, which I'm not sure. I haven't read the full licensing on Orca Slicer. I don't know if plugins have to be open source or not. But here's the thing, whether or not they do, because they already break the licenses anyway by releasing their own slicer and making it closed source, which Anycubic is actually going to be open sourcing theirs. According to news I've read, in December of this year, that's their plan. It may come December or a little bit later, depending on how on schedule they are. But why do that when you can release a plugin to add a tab for your printer when it's in use? When that printer gets selected here, have that tab get viewed. That allows you to give control back to the user, have one install of Orca Slicer, and it support the different printers. I know Elegoo, which right here's Elegoo's. They have a host type that they have created for theirs. You see, Prusa has a few here. FlashForge does. Simply Print. Um, that's something that can be worked out if needed with the Orca Slicer development team. Do a pull request, submit it back to them saying, hey, we'd like to add this communication protocol for our printers so our plugins can work in your software. That would be the most they might have to do with them. Hopefully, I mean, there may be more. Their developers can speak up on that and would know much more than I do. But I would much rather see this than a different slicer for every single manufacturer out there almost. All the major players, all the big names, they make their own, which is nothing but a fork of the original open source. And I'd much rather see the plugins. I would much rather be able to open Orca Slicer and add the tabs up here I need as I switch printers. When I choose my Anycubic, I'd like to see the tab come up for their workbench. Same with FlashForge. When I switched it, I'd like to see theirs come up. As you see, there's a slight hesitation when that loads. That's expected. Changing the GUI, we can do the same with tabs, and I think that would be a lot better because with plugins, you're not going to have core support for them as much, which means it's not going to bog down for other users that don't even have those printers. But then you can install a plugin if you do have it, and there you go. You've got those features. You know what's going to be needed. And if you're someone like me who has like two, three, four different printer brands, because you love the individual printers that you have, the features on them, what you get out of them, the quality you get, then why limit yourself to just one brand, one model, things like that. And that's what this helps combat. And it's really great for those who have a lot of different ones because you don't have to have a lot of software installed. You install one piece and add the plugins you need. That's kind of the purpose of them. So I'd like to see the manufacturers like FlashForge, like Elegoo, like Anycubic get behind this and start doing plugins for it. That's something that makes it easier on their developers as well. They don't have to upkeep the entire software package to keep it up to speed with bug fixes from Orca Slicer in order to keep that current plus their workbench, their device tabs. Um, then all they have to worry about is their plugin and support for it. That's it, which is great. And then at worst case scenario, they offer the download for Orca from their page that says this is the verified current compatible release for our plugin. That way, if there's a breaking change with an Orca Slicer update, until they can release a new version of their plugin or get that fixed, there's still a download point for their end users. So it's no different than having their own custom. except for a much larger support group from a community that is pre-existing and has a massive amount of great talent in it. So that's kind of my big rant on this. All I'm going to say on it. If you see this out there, you know somebody on support teams and all with the companies, send this video to them. Let them know. We would like to rather see them do the plugins, expand the abilities rather than create their own and lock it down. Um, they're working with a community that's based on open source, that loves open source, and it would really expand their their own view that end users have. Because it says a lot when a company embraces the open source. It speaks to the community in volumes. So, all right, thank you much. Everybody have a great day. It's the start of fall. I hope everybody's weather starts to cool down some for those in the hot areas. You have a great day.